Játészti Pelletier mai initially Billigana Basachin, Kimachini Dasache, Billigana Nationale. Welcome back to Resball, and this time we're talking about Georgetown center Thomas Sorber. It feels good to be talking about a Georgetown player again. I was born in 1984. My earliest basketball memories are watching Georgetown basketball on TV. So Alonzo Mourning, like love watching Alonzo Mourning, obviously AI, you know, man, I miss seeing Georgetown at the top. So it's awesome to see Thomas Sorber come in, get some draft love, get buckets, and hopefully Ed Cooley and that staff can get Georgetown back because college basketball is better when Georgetown is good. But we're going to get into Thomas Sorber right about now. Thomas Sorber is originally from Trenton, New Jersey. That's where he grew up. He attended Trenton Catholic Academy his freshman year, and then after that transferred over into Philadelphia and Archbishop Bryan High School for his sophomore year and beyond. In his senior season at Archbishop Bryan High School, Thomas Sorber scored 18.9 points per game, pulled in 11.2 rebounds, had 4.8 blocks per game. My goodness. 2.5 assists and 1.3 steals per game. You're going to see stuffing the stat sheet is something that Thomas Sorber is used to doing by this point and being the guy. Another thing to consider, we're going to talk a lot about Thomas Sorber's potential as a shooter because he is willing to take them, but I do think it's a long-term projection. 8 of 28 from three in Thomas Sorber's senior season. That's 29% for only took 28 shots from three. 8 of 28, that's 29% from three. And then from the free throw line, 146 of 191 shots. So got to the line 191 times and sank 146 of them. That's 76%. So if you want to do shooting projections and think about like what Thomas Sorber is as a shooter, those are two numbers to consider. 8 of 28 from three as a senior in high school, 29%. And then 141 of 191, 76% from the free throw line. So keep those numbers in mind as we now dive into Thomas Sorber's stats here for his freshman season at Georgetown. Thomas Sorber averaged 14.5 points per game, pulled in 8.5 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists, 1.5 steals per game, 2 blocks per game, and 2.3 turnovers per game. Thomas Sorber's shooting splits are 59.6% from two-point range, 16.2% from three-point range, oh buddy, and then 72.4% from the free throw line. What does this translate into as a true shooting percentage? It's 58%. So it's good. Even if the shot isn't quite there, 16%. Like he's still not wasting shots other than from three. So 58% true shooting percentage, really good. And then the free throw attempt rate, 42%, rock solid there. Got to the line a lot. The totals on that were 105 trips to the free throw line. And Thomas Sorber, unfortunately, did deal with injuries, so he only played 24 games. That's something to consider in the projection. I am not going to lie to you. I was not a big Thomas Sorber fan after about 15, 20 games. I did, along with a lot of other people from the DMV area like Jam, predict rightly, like Thomas Sorber is a name to keep an eye on just because you could hear the reports out of Georgetown that, this kid's cleared out. And also, like, the big man spot was really up for grabs. And knowing how much Thomas Sorber stuffed the stat sheet, all the blocks, even 2.5 assists is solid. And it is a natural scorer. It's like, okay, there's something there. And definitely proved it, even in the 24 games that Thomas Sorber did play. If this were back in the day, like if this were 1998, if this were 2005, I think we would be having the conversation of quote unquote a face up big. I mean, back in the day in those times, it was like, is the big going to be somebody you can kick out into in the post and they can do stuff backing guys down like an Al Jefferson? Or are they going to be somebody more facing up that's going to attack with jumpers and all those things? Like, sure, you could say Dirk, but more somebody like Derek Coleman, that kind of thing. I think today it's like that spot was a little hesitant on Thomas Sorber because it seemed like the game was a little bit more throwback with trying to work in the 3-point shot. And there's not a lot of threes either. Thomas Sorber only took 37 total threes throughout the season. I think energy is the number one thing with Thomas Sorber of why I don't necessarily want to say I've come around on him because I do think a lot of the game, both on offense and defense, has to do with being active, not necessarily having the skill. And this is where I'm treading lightly. I'm not saying that Thomas Sorber is unskilled. I'm just saying I don't think he quite has the skill level to match when somebody can match his energy or when just hustling and stuff doesn't get it done. The jumper, I think, is the main thing. The main thing that really bothered me is he fell in love with the jumper a little bit too much throughout the year. And in the beginning of the season, it looked terrible. And then at the end of the season, it was like, come on, man. But then after the dust settled, 58% true shooting, I'm like, okay, let me go to the shot chart first. 6 of 34 shots from above the break. That's 17.6% from three. Brutal. And then 0 of 3 from the corners. So again, the shooting projection to me is a long-term thing, but you look at the form and it looks fine. 76% in high school, 72.4% in college. Like, it's not bad. There's no weird hitch in it. It's not like he's shooting when he's coming down. It doesn't take a long time. He's clearly comfortable doing it and not shying away from it. It's part of his arsenal. It's not like the main thing. And that's the thing too. Like, I feel this is a me thing where when I was watching him and was like, oh, there's too much jumper. And then I went and looked at the 3-point attempt rate and it was just 14.8%. I was like, okay, maybe he took a lot of weird mid-range shots. He only took 33 in the mid-range. So again, this is on me. I think I'm just too hyper fixated on the jumper because when he does take it, it really stands out. And I think this is where modern quote unquote scouting probably ruins a lot of our brains because we're immediately looking at a jumper and can they do this and all that other stuff. And the 58% true shooting percentage at least screams to me, you know what? If you eliminate that stuff and you say, we don't want you to do that, we don't need a 3-point shot, we don't need you to have an elbow jumper or whatever, that's an easy thing to improve. Maybe he's just going to be rim running big. That's going to totally be fine here. Those mid-range shots, 13 of 33, 39.4%, not a great percentage. If you break it down to the medium zones, again, it's such a small sample size. Left baseline, only 4 shots. Left elbow, only 6 shots. Right elbow, only 9 shots. So, like, that doesn't even matter. And then the shot he took the most is from the right baseline, 5 of 14. Again, to me, it screams, okay, this is somebody that knows my bread is buttered in the paint and at the rim. So in the paint, 20 to 59, 47.5%, totally fine percentage. I think Thomas Sorber has quite a bit of array of post moves, and it is a decent like dude that gets on the offensive glass. So I think that's paint numbers like kind of scream that stuff too. He can't really turn over both shoulders, but he does have some nice like up and unders and things like that to get buckets. And again, another guy that will absolutely punish a mismatch if he has one. And then at the rim, 86 of 121 shots, 71.1%. Great. Anytime it's over 70%, you're like, okay, this guy can finish. This guy will do it no matter who's there. Because that's what most teams are trying to eliminate is keeping Thomas Sorber away from the rim. And I think Thomas Sorber can do it in a variety of fashions as a pick and roll finisher. Somewhat of a lob threat. I wouldn't call him like the top guy to do it, but when he had a clear lane and working with the right point guard, definitely for sure. Like if he ends up in Charlotte with the Melo Ball, if he ended up in Detroit with Cade Cunningham, if he ended up in San Antonio with De'Aaron Fox, I think absolutely those guys will find him on that, and he's athletic enough. And as we'll see in a minute, the wingspan makes a difference too. And why I say I think back in the day, like this would be a question of like, is this a face so big? Is this a back to the basket big? He does a little bit of both in terms of attacking off the dribble to get to the rim, in terms of backing dudes down in the post and then using those moves to do it. He can do both. And then a couple in the pick and roll finishing stuff there, occasionally in the dunker spot. Like whatever you want him to do, whatever rim pressure role you want a Thomas Sorber to do, I feel pretty strongly that he is definitely going to do it. I have Thomas Sorber at 17 on my big board. He's like always been knocking on the door of the lottery, but again, I don't really know where to fall on a Thomas Sorber. I put him in between these two guys, Kaman Malowacz, John Broome, because I think he falls distinctly between these two, where we'll get into it with John next time of like jack of all trades, maybe master of none. The shooting potential seemed to be there, but then this year didn't really go away. Is definitely more traditional back to the basket center. That was his game. So it's like, oh, okay, there's going to be a little bit of a role shift. Whereas Thomas Sorber, it's like, I feel like he's super comfortable with that. You see the high school production. The other thing you see is the combine measurements. Thomas Sorber at the combine measured in at 6'9" and a quarter inch without shoes. So 6'10" guy we're looking at on the court, 262.8 pounds, and then a 7'6" wingspan. So not as tall as a combine mile watch, but a 7'6" wingspan. That's another thing of like, oh, no wonder this guy was finishing. No wonder this guy got a block percentage of 7.6%. And he averaged over 2 blocks, or right at 2 blocks per game. The total on that too was 49 blocks. It's like the physical tools aren't as stand out and eye-opening as a combine mile watch. The rim protection numbers aren't quite as elite, but seeing as how Thomas Sorber didn't have a Cooper Flag, didn't have Zion James or Malik Brown or those other guys there, 7.6% block percentage on his own. It's like, okay, there's clearly something here. And normally when you're this productive, I mean, you just can't ignore it. 58 assists, 35 steals, 49 blocks, 54 turnovers. So just a little over 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, and then 203 blocks. So if you want to just look at the positive aspects, 203 rebounds. I might have said blocks. I meant rebounds. 203 rebounds, 58 assists, 35 steals, 49 blocks in only 24 games. I mean, that's some good stuff, man. And a lot of this is done off effort and hustle and the desire to want to be better. But where it comes down to me too, is like, I see the jumper. I just don't feel very strongly that this is somebody that right away you can give a role to and feel confident that they're necessarily going to know the right shot and not, go outside the role they give them. So the first, what is that, 9 games for Thomas Sorber, made 4 threes. He was like 4 out of 12 in those first 9 games, 33% from 3. So it's like, okay, maybe there's something there. The final 15, though, the final 15 games that a Thomas Sorber played in NCAA basketball, he was 2 of 25 for 8% from 3. Let me say that again. Final 15 games, Thomas Sorber was 2 of 25 from 3, 8%. That's a single digit. If you're watching this on YouTube, let me show you this line here. This line, let me close this out here. This line right here is the 3-pointers. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. In these final 15 games, there's only one game where Thomas Sorber made any threes. And that was on the January 25th game against Providence, where he was 2 of 3 from 3-point range. Everything else, all 5 back in December 14th against Syracuse, 0 of 3 against Creighton. Fast forward to that 2 of 3 Providence game in January 25th, and then fast forward to the final game against Butler that Thomas Sorber played on February 15th, and he didn't even take a 3. Oh, that's a lot of zeros, man. And I know it's a projection, and not many people want him to be here, but there's something there. Where it came down to with Thomas Sorber, because I'm like, man, I honestly don't want to give up on the jumper and say it's not a thing. Just because, again, you see the time he put into it. The free throw mechanics aren't wildly, out of line. You do see him making the right decisions to take threes. He's not over-reliant on it. And again, the true shooting percentage was 58%. The 3-point attempt rate was 14.8%. It's like, what if this guy was just a capable shooter? What if this guy just shot 30% from 3, 33% from 3? We're talking like 59% true shooting then. And that's probably going to help his free throw mechanics too as well, working on that jumper. It's not a big stable part of his game. It's something he does when he's wide open. I'm like, man, just keep at it. Keep at it. And with that energy and with the way he stuffs the stat sheet, this just seems to me somebody that will impact the game on both sides of the ball. And my comp ended up being Christian Wood for Thomas Sorber. No, I don't think the character concerns are there. This is where I hate giving comps sometimes is like immediately people go, "What do you think this guy's a head case?" And like whatever. It's like, no, I'm just talking about skill level. There was no reason why Christian Wood shouldn't have been drafted, and the only reason he didn't get drafted would be because of character issues and things that he needed to work out in his own personal and interiority. It doesn't seem to be that way with Thomas Sorber. So I'm saying athletically, physically is the just that gifted, is somebody that is working on a jump shot. And even for Christian Wood, it took a while for it to finally be effective. But the skill didn't always match up with the IQ and the hustle and all that stuff. You couldn't take away Thomas Sorber's, or excuse me, you couldn't take away Christian Wood's athleticism. You couldn't take away his desire and energy. And then when the skill level caught up, it was there. But I think in the Christian Wood case, maybe the like character stuff kind of reared its head too. So I do feel very strongly that Thomas Sorber can be that overall impact guy that can work on a jumper and be a really multi-purpose big man. I think Thomas Sorber could play either big man spot to power forward or center, similar to how a Christian Wood ended up being in the NBA. Probably leaned more towards power forward. And really, it's going to come down to Thomas Sorber's lower body strength, I think, for like, okay, is this guy center? Is this guy a power forward? Because there were times on defense for me that I'm like, man, I know you're supposed to be to like 255 is what they listed him at Georgetown, but man, you got moved too easily on that stuff. And then the movement skills and being able to attack and do a little bit more things on defense on the perimeter. It's like, okay, I could see that power forward and playing next to a big man like a Brook Lopez or playing next to a big man like a Miles Turner. It's like, yeah, that would make sense. Or even in like if he ended up in New York, like he and Cat together would be a great matchup there because Thomas Sorber would get after it and don't have to do much on offense in the immediate and can make up for Cat's lack of defense there and the wingspan and all that stuff. Seems good, but Thomas Sorber definitely will get busy. And I don't want to necessarily give up on the jump shot, but I do definitely want to shine a light on it and say this is a long term projection and could end up being like a Christian Wood type of player without the character concerns. Yeah, like some things to look at on YouTube with the Thomas Sorber scouting report here on YouTube by Hoop Intellect, aka Keandre. Shout out Keandre. Go check out Hoop Intellect's Thomas Sorber scouting report. Cash Iggy has a lot of Thomas Sorber games on there, including the last that game I mentioned where he did hit some threes against Providence on January 25th. I really would look at that game in particular to understand like this is where the jumper is and what it looks like. I know there's a long stretch of not hitting any threes that I highlighted the last 15 games. The 15 games, it's a good enough sample size, but it's 15 games. Play 82 in the NBA. You got a long career ahead of you. Please check out this Cash Iggy game against Providence to get an idea of the jumper. And then Floor and Ceiling put out a Thomas Sorber scouting report. It's about 60 minutes, 20 seconds. Another one to look at, college basketball scouting on Thomas Sorber as well, some scouting highlights. And then last but not least, as always, NoCeilingsNBA.com, Thomas Sorber season highlights and other things that they got there on No Ceilings NBA on YouTube and NoCeilingsNBA.com. Go check out all the great draft stuff that they do there. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. Next time, we're going to return with the context big man, as I called him here, with John Ibroom. Have fun.